Among his first acts back in office, Donald Trump pardoned more than 1,500 people convicted over the storming of the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. Some were serving long prison sentences, and they include prominent extremist groups.
Chaos and violent clashes. Washington had never seen something like this before. As a mob of Donald Trump supporters stormed the Capitol 4 years ago. The siege lasted 7 hours. One rioter was shot and killed by the police. More than 100 police officers were injured. Trump called the rioters hostages, and they can now walk free. As the newly sworn-in president, Trump delivered on his campaign promise.
So this is January 6th. These are the hostages. Approximately 1,500 for a pardon.
Yes.
Full pardon.
His supporters cheered as he signed a flurry of executive actions on his first day. Riot investigators found that Trump had lit that fire of insurrection.
The attack on our nation's capital on January 6, 2021, was an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy.
But as president, Trump escaped indictment. Among those he pardoned is Enrique Tarrio, former leader of a neo-fascist organization, the Proud Boys. Also walking free is Stuart Rhodes, the founder of the far-right group, the Oath Keepers.
Thank you, President, for signing those pardons. And as always, as I've told everybody, remember, the President adheres to his promises.
This has angered many police, who testified about their ordeal to riot investigators. But Trump continues to dismiss their concerns, calling the riot a day of love.
Approximately 1,500 people.
All right, DW reporter Stefan Simons is standing by for us outside of the District of Columbia prison in Washington, D.C. Stefan, tell us, what role has the prison where you are, what role has it played in the context of the January 6th attack?
Well, yeah, this prison here, D.C. prison, has been functioning as a holdover transition prison. So here is where January 6 rioters were, after they got convicted, held and then transferred into federal prisons all over the country, basically, or other prisons over the country. So, and in that regard, there is not to be expected a huge crowd of Gen 6 prisoners to be released. We're going to move here a little bit now, here from this prison, because the release is already happening all over the country. As you pointed out, Oath Keepers leader and so on, they were already released during the course of the day, a federal prison in Maryland. So this is going to go on, except this group here, and maybe our cameraman can show this here, these are the Gen 6 supporters groups, and of course in families and friends, and they expect a kind of more massive release out of this prison. If this is going to happen, I don't really know. We will see. But one way or another, this changes nothing about the fact that 1,500 Gen 6 rioters, if you want to call them that way, are released per pardon of the President of the United States.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it has happened. It's a fact. And what kind of signal then is President Trump sending by pardoning basically most, if not almost all, of the January 6 rioters?
That depends on who you ask. There's one group who says, like, those are martyrs, actually. They are seen, as the president calls them, as hostages of an evil system that incarcerated them and indicted them, incarcerated them, convicted them, and put them into prison. If you ask another group of people, of course, they are more or less in shock and awe about what happened here, because, of course, this raises questions about equality of law, the application of law equally to the liking of a president. And maybe they have a point too. The bottom line is that this was a criminal investigation, the largest in the history of the United States of America. And all of the time, all of the man hours, all of the convictions and the reasons for this conviction, it's all out of the window. And some say justice went out of the window with the pardon of the president.
Yeah, Stefan, I mean, we're talking about people who were convicted for attacking police officers on January 6th, and they have now been pardoned by a Republican president. Talk to me about what kind of reactions we're seeing in the States to this.
It's a mixed reaction. Again, here, this crowd is absolutely okay with this and saying President Trump promised it in his campaign. During his campaign, he's doing what he promised, and he ought to do this. That's what they say. On the other hand, there are others who are saying this is an effort by the new president to whitewash history, to rebrand what happened on January 6, 2021. I was there, actually, and I saw what happened there.
Yeah.
And it was not a love fest, as the president said. Not at all. However, this is supposed to be expected now in the next 4 years, probably, that one group sees it that way. Anything the president will do will be A-okay, and then there will be others who say, well, that's actually dangerous for everybody and for democracy.
Yeah, well, Stefan, as you said, you were an eyewitness to history, and an executive order cannot change the reality that you and many other people eyewitnessed on that day. Our reporter Stefan Simons in Washington, D.C., outside of the D.C. prison. Stefan, thank you. All right, let's take a look at some of the other executive orders signed by Trump on day one of his second term. Along with pardoning the Capitol rioters, Trump also signed multiple orders aimed at curbing immigration. He declared a national emergency along the border between the U.S. and Mexico. And he also issued an order to end birthright citizenship, a right guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution, which gives U.S. citizenship to any person born on U.S. soil. On Tuesday, 18 U.S. states sued to block this order. President Trump also withdrew the United States from the Paris Climate Agreement for the second time. He also reversed other Biden-era initiatives to tackle global warming. Plus, Trump said that the U.S. is paying too much to the World Health Organization, so he withdrew the U.S. from the WHO. Well, for more, I'm joined now by our Washington Bureau Chief, Ines Pohl. It's been a busy time, Ines. Trump's executive orders pick up on many of his central election promises. Tell us more about what he wants to do to boost border security and to curb immigration.
Yeah, indeed, it was kind of just a tsunami of executive orders, so I kind of tried to give us a little bit of an overview here. He declared a national state of emergency and vowed to send thousands of soldiers to the southern border. Authorities also decided, kind of in his name, to cancel an app that helped migrants enter the United States legally, and this actually impacted people just minutes after it was shut down yesterday. Then he also re-implemented the Remain in Mexico law, which was in place during his first term and requires migrants, as the kind of name tells already, to stay in Mexico until they get an appointment with officials regardless of their origin. So they could come from some Latin America countries, but also from China or from Afghanistan and whatnot. Then we are also, and this is crucial for the next hours, are waiting for information about raids expecting to occur at factories and homes in sanctuary cities. As I said, this might happen in the next hours.
Tough immigration policies, Ines, we know that they were a cornerstone of Trump's first term. Will these new measures, will they have a greater impact?
Well, Brent, overall, he's just much better prepared than last time, not only by the pure number of executive orders he had ready to be signed, but also by the legal advice he has received over the last years. He has brought in many, many experienced senior politicians who will work to enforce his policies. And on top of that, we also have to factor in that the mood in the United States has really changed over the last years. His rhetoric about an invasion of migrants, for example, and also the release of exaggerated figures claiming millions and millions of migrants would enter the country, it's resonating with many Americans, and of course makes it easier for him to come through with his efforts.
Ines, I'm wondering, could these measures, these executive orders, could they be overturned?
Well, it depends on which executive order, and it also depends on how many states, cities, organizations, and even private citizens will challenge these orders. You know, many of his ideas are actually unpopular, such, for example, as removing the birthright citizenship. You just talked about it. It's a guarantee that everyone who is born on U.S. soil gets the U.S. citizenships. People want, or the majority of the American people want to keep that law in place. And additionally, to what I just talked about, it also, of course, will matter what impact his policies will have on businesses. We know that many industries rely on undocumented migrants, such as meat factories in Chicago, for example, or also, of course, many farmers out in California. So these are factors which will all play a role in that regard.
Another big story coming on day one was Trump pardoning almost all of the rioters who stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, including those who were convicted for serious acts of violence. How does President Trump justify this?
Well, as you also mentioned, Bren, he even repeated yesterday, just hours after he has been sworn in, that the last election was rigged, implying that the January 6ers were merely defending their right to contest an election they believed was stolen. But for me, the broader implication really of his pardons is that he demonstrates on day one to his diehard supporters that he stands by his promises and fights for them if they fight for him, regardless whether they break the law in the process. And this, of course, raises significant concerns here in the United States about the future of the rule of law. And the majority of the Americans actually do not believe that those who attack police officers, for example, or other law enforcement officers should be pardoned. So Trump seems unconcerned about this criticism and just wants to show that those who are willing to commit violence in his name will be supported by him.
Is that the message that you think Donald Trump is sending with these pardons, Ines?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is the main message he's sending out there, and we must not forget that those who really committed serious crimes are cleaned of their criminal record. They're released, and they can go to any weapon shop and buy weapons again. So this is, I think, a very strong message he's sending there.
Yeah, as if nothing ever happened. DW's Washington Bureau Chief Ines Pohl. Ines, as always, thank you.